good afternoon. Welcome to this broadcast of the PM Radio Westminster, an initiative brought to you by the University of Westminster with an aim of bringing the project management community together by offering news, research, and expert discussions on the latest in the project management world. We usually start our broadcasts with 10 minutes of a collection of news on projects, major infrastructure, project management training, education, and research. This is followed by a 30-minute interview with key experts on a selected topic. And usually, our audience can participate by sharing comments and by asking questions on the topic of the interview. So let's start with the news. On the project training and certification front, the Project Management Institute, PMI, announced that graduates of GAC accredited programs will be awarded substantial credit toward the experience requirement on their application for all PMI certifications. These certifications include the very famous PMP, Project Management Professional Certificate, Program Management Professional, Portfolio Management Professional, PMI Professional in Business Analysis, PMI Agile Certified Practitioner, Risk Management Professional, and Scheduling Professional. So, if you are a student or a graduate of an undergraduate or postgraduate program that has been accredited by PMI GCI, this reduction in the number of years of experience is really at your advantage. And this reduction, the amount of the reduction equals to 12 months, a whole year of reduction in the number of years required for the experience criteria. And this might allow you to apply for any of these certifications sooner than before. Now, on the project front, we all are seeing how the world economy is suffering the consequences of COVID-19, and the UK is no exception. Many sectors are navigating through this stormy condition. Plans for a post-COVID revival of the UK construction sector have been published on the 1st of June by the Construction Leadership Council's COVID-19 task force. They have set out proposals to secure the future of construction businesses nationwide while setting the industry on a three-stage sustainable path towards recovery. The three-pronged plan, Restart, Reset, and Reinvention, outlines a roadmap to recovery for the industry as it emerges from the COVID-19 crisis, and the CLC task force is now engaging with the government to test how the plan's proposals might be delivered. The CLC make the point that construction is uniquely placed to drive the national economy recovery as it operates throughout the UK, employing 3.1 million workers and exporting billions of pounds of products and services. The recovery strategy aims to increase the level of activity across the construction ecosystem, accelerate the process of industry adjustment to the new normal, and build capacity in the industry to deliver strategic priorities, including increasing prosperity across the UK, decarbonisation, modernisation through digital and manufacturing technologies, and by delivering better and safer buildings. There are three phases to the plan, which is expected to be delivered over 2 years. The first phase is to restart. This increases output, maximizes employment, and minimizes disruption, and this is planned to take between 0 to 3 months. 3 months, in fact. The second phase is to reset, which is drive demand, increase productivity, strengthen capability in the supply chain, expected to take between 3 to 12 months. The third phase is to reinvent, to transform the industry, deliver better value and collaboration and partnership. And this is estimated to take between 12 to 24 months. So good news for the graduates because the construction industry is actually looking for maximizing employment. Key outcomes, the CLC say, will be a more capable, professional, productive, and profitable sector, which delivers better value to clients, better performing infrastructure and buildings, and compete successfully in global markets. Yet, this means more pressure on the construction industry. especially under the restrictions brought about by the disease. Last week, we shared with you that some companies are developing face shields for the construction industry. We are continuing with the news on social distancing in construction. Each site on the project Tideway London has had comprehensive planning to allow workers to return with extensive measures in place, such as at the Falconbrook pumping station, which includes one-way systems, increased sanitation, and outdoor briefings. An article by David Suffer from TechAround website reads, as construction projects reopen across the UK and workers and subcontractors go back on site, robust health and safety protocol will be at the forefront of every house builder's and subcontractor's minds. Whilst substantial efforts have been made to make sites as safe as possible, including remote inductions and contactless signings, maintaining social distancing with the project perimeter remains a massive challenge for the construction industry. On busy sites, with all sorts of activity going on in limited space, close proximity of personnel can be hard to avoid, even with clearly demarcated areas. A considerable amount of spatial awareness is required by each person on site to avoid close contact with others. This makes social distancing extremely difficult, particularly when multiple jobs have to be delivered on time, in limited space, and by more than one worker. It's an issue which has caused major concerns for workers, with some refusing to return to site unless the risks are significantly minimized. One site is a construction health and safety software provider, launched in May 2020, is working with the industry to develop a potential tech-driven PPE solution to this problem. The solution is simply a wristband. This wristband will aid social distancing. Today, the company can announce that the trials for this latest innovation have been a success. Whilst there are a number of social distancing products available in the market, the wristband differs significantly. Firstly, it retails at a 90% lower price point than other similar devices. Secondly, the wristband does not rely on smartphones or need personal data to operate effectively. The emergence of this technology is crucial in the current climate. These wristbands will help personnel better identify when they are in breach of social distancing measures in a secure way. It's part of a wider scheme alongside the already established remote induction and contactless sign-in technology. Despite all these restrictions and all social distancing, Hinkley Point, the famous nuclear power plant project, and under social distancing measures, the construction of second nuclear reactor concrete base at Hinkley Point C has been completed. An article on Construction Review Online reads, the concrete base for the first reactor was completed in June 2019. The next milestone is to build the roof of the first reactor. This site should be completed by 2025. A title from Infrastructure Intelligence says, TfL's construction projects to commence phased restart. Extensive physical changes to work sites and ways of working are being introduced by TfL, Transport for London, and its contractors to ensure sites can reopen as safely and quickly as possible and help all workers stay safe and maintain social distancing. This includes staggered shifts and breaks to spread journeys outside peak periods and prevent large groups, clear signage for social distancing and one-way walking routes, additional staff welfare areas, additional hand washing facilities and sanitizing stations, reconfigured canteens and access to personal hand sanitizers. All sites, of course, will have a reduced number of people working at any one time, with some sites having an additional site supervisor to ensure social distancing is maintained. Workers will be further supported at some sites by welfare wardens who will control access to common areas and changing facilities so they do not become crowded. So, a lot of changes are taking place to pre-existing processes and procedures, but the same aim remains, which is to complete and deliver these projects and programs. Indeed, the field of project management has always sought efficiency and effectiveness as core values to the management of projects, with the aim of delivering these projects on time, within budget, and to quality. This is mainly why project management best practice came to light, promising these effectiveness and efficiencies, promising excellence in managing projects and the successful delivery of project outcome. Still, it is argued that best practice can only be applied for known situations and not under uncertainty. Indeed, the COVID-19 and the associated uncertainty it brought about are changing many aspects of how projects are being run and managed. So, is best practice the best for managing projects under uncertainty? Could it deal with project complexity? And how is this best practice developed and collected in the first place? AXELOS is a famous leading organization in developing and delivering certification in project management best practice. It is a joint venture set up in 2014 by the government of the United Kingdom and Capita to develop, manage, and operate qualifications in best practice in methodologies formerly owned by the Office of Government Commerce. Today, I'm really delighted to welcome two experts from AXELOS to share their experience and thoughts with us and to help in answering our questions on project management best practice. Please welcome Allan Thompson and Mark Hudson. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining, Allan and Mark. I'm really glad to have you here today.
Yeah, really glad to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Hey, Dania, that was some great music played then. We enjoyed it.
Okay, good to hear. Can we start please by introducing yourselves, the nature of your role in AXELOS? I'll start with Allan.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Allan Thompson. I'm the PPM Product Ambassador at AXELOS. As an ambassador, I'm a subject matter expert on all of the PPM products, in particular Prince 2 that we'll probably discuss today. The ambassador role, basically, in the ambassador role, I give thought leadership presentations regarding the PPM product set, and I'm accustomed to reviewing all PPM related content that AXELOS provides. So it's a global role, and basically we were here to basically generate the best practice possible in the PPM suite.
Excellent, thank you. Welcome, Mark.
Thank you very much, Dania. Hello everyone, my name is Mark Hudson. I am the Academia Manager here at AXELOS. And really my role is to engage with higher education institutions globally. And really what I'm trying to do there is to raise awareness of AXELOS certifications and crucially the kind of benefits for those institutions' graduates when they go into the workplace. So really pleased to be here today.
Me too. Us too, I think. So let me start with the first question, which is a very basic one. It might seem very simple, but to be honest, when I look up best practice definition, I can find many. So how would you define best practice, Allan? Okay.
The way we define best practice is this involves a continual evolution of guidance through robust review by our ecosystem of trainers, subject matter experts, end users who use the product on a daily basis, and our academic institutions which we engage, which Mark will tell you more about. And also through these reviews and subsequent updates by specialist subject matter expert authors, we currently reflect the current landscape in the marketplace, and that's how we try to maintain the best practice up and keep it up to date.
Excellent. Thank you. Mark, would you define it in a different way, or would you say it's the same?
No, I totally agree with what Allan says. I think there in addition, I suppose I'd say that really the course content is therefore, sort of distilled from the kind of real world experience and sort of developing practices. And really, just to say that we talk about kind of global best practice rather than just best practice, because that's really where we look for feedback and input from, from the ecosystem, from the channel, from academic contributors, from business, and really kind of in terms of the work that I do, I really find that this kind of global focus of the certifications is very, very appealing to universities who are keen for their students to think sort of beyond their local region or country. And just to give one example of that, fairly recently, we were having a discussion with an institution in Florida, and it was with their head of careers, and she really, really liked the idea that Prince 2 and ITIL are both certifications that can get students thinking beyond Florida, and she was saying that she kind of wants the university there to really think both beyond the US to sort of how graduates go and work overseas, and she felt that Prince 2 would be a really effective way to sort of encourage that mindset.
I think you've already highlighting one factor. I'm going to ask about this later on the popularity of Prince 2. I'm going to go through this in a few minutes. Now, let's think about organizations in general and best practice in general, not in specific Prince 2 or any other certification AXELOS does provide. Why do you think organizations want to adapt best practice? What are the reasons, the motives that they want to adapt best practice and they want to send their employees to get trained, Alan?
The reason businesses want best practice is in business it's all about being prepared, and it's all about being prepared for the current challenges in the business and the climate for opportunities that the future holds, as well as the challenges. The working environment changing at an ever increasing rate. So the only way that you can ensure that the organization can cope is by training your staff to handle the change, so people are able to handle change and manage it effectively. Within the organization, decision makers, we did a report in 2019 called the Power Certification Report, and from this, the research was done that the major factors for decision makers was meeting company industry requirements to make sure that organizations remain competitive, and also keeping pace with changing technology and improving employee productivity, so that basically the organization as a whole can cope with the changes taking place.
Thank you, Ellen. I think the productivity thing is a major element in project management, because at the end of the day, we all want highly productive project teams. We want highly productive contractors, supply chain. So I know productivity is one very major element in wanting to adapt best practice, efficiency and effectiveness as well. You mentioned handling change and keeping up with changes, being able to adapt better. I'll come back to this point later. Mark, you've just said something about Prince 2 being popular, and you've mentioned Florida. So on what basis was Prince 2 developed, and what makes it that popular, even globally?
So I actually had to sort of find out the detail of this from Alan, because he's kind of a subject matter expert around Prince 2. But to my understanding, the sort of direct predecessor was something called Prompt, which originated in the civil service back in the mid-70s. And really the sort of first version of Prince was introduced in 1989, and the first version of Prince 2 in the mid-90s, I think, around 1996. So, it's been with us for sort of 30 odd years, and really it's popular because it's easy to use, it's generic, it's adaptable, it's tailorable, and really it's kind of suitable for any sort of type of industry. And it was just, it's sort of tried and tested, which really provides users with confidence. So I think that again, for me, I think I'd say that the sort of the trusted aspect of this is really something that's kind of fundamental to sort of project success. I think the way also I think of it is a bit of a kind of rolling snowball where, the kind of more and more people certify over the years, and therefore more and more projects take place using the Prince 2 method. And really, I suppose those projects, the results of those are proven, and really kind of end of the day, if someone joins an organization where a team of project managers are already using the Prince 2 method, it obviously makes sense for that person, and particularly a graduate from somewhere like the University of Westminster, sort of come to that business, you know, equipped with that certification to really sort of fit into the project team, I suppose, as quickly as possible, you know, and sort of, for example, use the kind of project management language that they're using.
Yes, yes. It is a language. It is a language, isn't it? Yeah, Alan.
Yeah, and I think just on touching what Mark said there, it's tried and tested, which you probably need in the current situation we're in. Something you can actually use, you know it'll work, so it's one less thing to worry about.
Yeah, yeah, indeed. Well, Alan, to you, do you think there is what's the strongest competitor to Prince2? I mean, if you want to look at project management best practice.
I think there's a few. I wouldn't say the competitors. I think other frameworks and methods basically are concentrated in different areas, and they offer different tools that project managers can use. But from a pure methodology, our product is probably the universal, globally accepted. There is other methodologies out there, but they also serve a purpose. And they're complementary to Prince2, such as its adaptability and flexibility.
Yeah, adaptability and flexibility, and it says so in Prince2 that could be tailored to any type of project, to any type of industry, which probably is one of the main criteria why it's becoming more and more popular. And as Mark said, it's becoming more of a language for project management as well, a common language for people to use.
Yeah, can I just add something to that as well, which is to say, just again, and this is based on the conversations that I have in the course of my work. And again, I think one of the key aspects of Prince2 is the fact that there's a complete lack of prerequisites to be able to sort of do it. So, you know, you don't need a number of work experience hours, etc. So, you know, from a kind of student's perspective, who may well be starting out at sort of an early stage of his or her career, you know, you can imagine how that's really appealing to be able to study Prince2 via their university or college, and then obviously they can kind of go into their kind of project management business career already knowing that language, and already knowing that methodology, which I think is, you know, clearly will make their CV frankly stand out from others who maybe don't have that.
Yeah, and also just to support that further, Mark, as well, is that the feedback from end users or organizations, they have people who are coming in from universities, they've got Prince2 qualification for project management, but the key message to the employers is that they're comfortable with change, and that's what organizations need these days.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The factor where you don't need prerequisite to apply for Prince2 or to take Prince2 is a major thing for students as well.
It is, yeah. And also the fact that, you know, just to build on Alan's point, that when those graduates do come into the workplace, you know, they can really hit the ground running. You know, they've already been schooled in the kind of business language to be able to use in the workplace. And, you know, the fact is that in 2020, employers really want that. You know, I think the days of kind of starting a job and then having kind of, you know, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months to sort of get used to it are sort of sadly long over, really. You know, you need to sort of come in and really make a difference from the get-go.
Yeah, yeah. So in this case, what are the criteria for anything, a method, a framework, or a process to become best practice? So what kind of box this framework or method needs to tick for it to become we can call it global best practice?
Yeah, I mean, I can only answer that from what we do, but to become a best practice or a global best practice, it's continually evolved to reflect the current landscape. So you're taking on board as much as you can how things are changing in the world, project management, etc., and that's reflected in the book itself. And it's following feedback, both good and bad, from end users, regular reviews with the ecosystem, and updates by SME authors who are out there using the product for real and with the ability to bring that experience into making the guide, acknowledge and respect what's already been in the guide, but also enhance it. And basically also on top of that, what we're also looking at AXELOS as well is we have support publications which help the best practice itself. You know, for example, if you're sitting exams, you're doing a passing in your Prince2, Prince2 guide, or if you're on a project board in an organization, you'll have the directing guide to help you. So we're doing a lot of support like that as well. We also explore a lot of thought leadership aspects within the project management space via blogs and white papers and webinars, etc., and podcasts.
Okay, so maybe there should be a consensus then, in the way you are describing it, there should be a consensus among practitioners and academics as well, that
Yes.
this works, and
Yes.
this is why it becomes called best practice, probably.
Yeah, because what you're doing, you're engaging all parts of the ecosystem. I mean, trainers will have to be involved because they need to be aware of how to train the product, but it's important, and this is how we've changed over the years within AXELOS, is that we're looking at end users more. That's why we have the AXELOS community. We've got academics who are looking at it. We've got end users. So the ecosystem is large, but it needs to be to support the global product itself.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think the fact that it needs to be kind of continually evolved to really reflect the current business landscape is of crucial importance, you know. Kind of, you know, as Allan mentioned, is sort of something that's really based on sort of feedback from all appropriate stakeholders. And I think the moment we sort of stop taking in that feedback is you know, the sort of really the moment when problems start to develop. So I think it's absolutely crucial that we continue to have that flow of input and information from both business, from academia, from end users, from the ecosystem.
I think it's important to note here as well that collaboration with our ecosystem is at the heart of everything we do at AXELOS. So that's how we evolve our products. We can't and wouldn't do it in isolation. We need to involve the ecosystem to update them accordingly.
Yeah,
and
right.
I'll call it a continual evolution.
Continual evolution. It's a nice terminology to describe it. Basically,
yeah, I've got a nice slide that goes with it as well.
Yeah. How does methods like Prince2, for example, how often do they get updated?
Do you want me to take that, Mark?
Yeah, Allan. Allan or Mark, up to you.
Okay.
We can both do it. Allan, go for it.
Yeah, this is dependent upon the feedback from the community. If they observe that there's issues with the guide, then this is something that can be scheduled into an update of the product, but it's based on the feedback from the community. And if the community are using the product effectively and there's no negative comments coming in, then the product is still fit for use, etc. But if there's any issues, then we have like a change log which we basically build up, and then if something then becomes particularly serious, then we can schedule that into an update of the product.
Okay, wonderful. Mark,
Tanya,
you want to add?
I was going to say the same, but just in addition, I suppose I was going to add that way of doing it really applies to the whole suite of the AXELOS certification. So
yes, absolutely.
We're again, just to sort of go back, I suppose, to the sort of aspect that we are, it's really the strength of the feedback from the community, I suppose, that defines the strength of the products themselves. And that's really how our products kind of develop and kind of continually evolve.
I believe so, and I agree with this as well. I think one of the domains in project management is called knowledge management, and it's becoming more and more important for organizations to document lessons learned and to share the knowledge on managing the different types of projects. And I think this is when collaboration becomes very important and very useful, very valuable. But you need the organizations to document this knowledge first. You need them to engage with the learning of lessons, to be able to feed it back to you, right? Do you think organizations do that? Are they good at knowledge management or at learning from lessons?
Do you want me to answer that
Allan,
one?
please. Allan, yes.
Well, based on our 2019 PPM benchmark report, because as you probably know, we do an awful lot of independent research on our ecosystem as well to see trends. It was quite alarming that organizations are still not doing lessons learned the way they should be. And we had some really interesting quotes coming from organizations saying that it's project management theory and not insufficient budget to do it. And my view on that is it needs to happen, because project management's a difficult task. But if it's common sense, if you see a project which is similar to one you're about to go on, then you look at the lessons learned from that and include them into the project you're going to do. So you're not going into a blind scenario. But the 2000 report was quite highlighted that nothing much had changed, and there was this issue that it was someone else's budget to do the lessons learned. There wasn't a great demand from senior people within the organization, who consequently 6 months later knew they should have done it because they experienced the problems that the actual previous project had highlighted. So organizations need to do this, and it'd be interesting to do, because we did it in 2019, maybe next year, the year after, because you want to give the ecosystems some time to stabilize, is to do that research project again. But I presented it to a senior C-suite audience, and they just were quite perplexed by the results.
Okay.
It's project management theory.
Yeah. Obviously. Mark, would you like to comment on this, on the learning aspect, lessons learned, and do you think you can do anything as AXELOS? Can you do anything to motivate or to encourage organizations more to document lessons learned or knowledge management to be more effective in feeding back to you on the methodology that they are using?
I think it's about, we obviously have a pretty well established way to gather information from them in terms of face-to-face and sort of online engagement. I think it's though kind of, obviously there's lots of stakeholders who understand this, but I think it's perhaps for those who don't, it's really making them realize that it's almost like the more we get from them, the more rich sourcing information and feedback we get from them, the better informed our product team are in terms of the sort of development of our products going forwards, and ultimately the better and more relevant to the marketplace those certifications will be. So I suppose it's really a case of kind of making them understand that the work that they do to provide that information is incredibly useful for us, but also it kind of enables us and enables the wider channel as well and stakeholders to engage with them as well as a sort of pro.
Yeah. I think that's the only way, isn't it? And they have to understand, the project management community, the practitioners, they have to understand that it's a two-way relationship. If they give, they can take that. Yeah.
If they think it's, we've all been asked, haven't we, to sort of fill out, for example, some form, and then we send it off and we never really hear again. So I think that's kind of the worst way to do it. I think it's making them understand that actually they're in providing their feedback and their information, they themselves are sort of joining this community of practitioners, of end users, of business, of academics, for sort of mutual benefit. I think Allan mentioned talking about collaboration at sort of the top of his commentary, and really that's a really key word for us.
Yeah, it is. You've just said something about Allan, I think. He just said that maybe in the next year, maybe this event of updating the methodology, like Prince 2, might need to take place after the ecosystem stabilizes. Let me talk about emergent events or complex systems. In complex systems, like any project is actually a complex system. In complex systems, we do have emergence. And events do emerge, and probably COVID-19 is the best example. Something out of the sudden emerges, and we just have to deal with it. We are not prepared. We don't know how to deal with it. We've got nothing similar to it previously, so there is no lessons learned. So do you think, first of all, Allan, do you think best practice like Prince 2 can deal with emergent events? And if they can, how?
Yes, I mean, yes, it would be the emergent and the complex project would be managed in the same way, so that the organisation can benefit from the established best practice which is out there, and and this is some of the advantages to organisations, like for example, creating stronger communication across the team through the use of common terminology, which will mitigate mistakes being made, because everyone's in a state of flux at the moment. So what they want to use is want to use a method that basically they know will work. And one of the major issues of projects failing is miscommunication. So what we endeavour to do within Prince2 is basically have a common vocabulary which mitigates that. So you get stronger communication across the team and the organisation, aligning the project managers and businesses to become more customer centric, understand what the customers basically requires and make sure it's delivered. But if things basically emerge, then basically involving the customer in that particular way. And also because everyone has lost revenue, ensure cost management through a tried and tested process. And that's what Prince2 delivers. It's tried and tested. So if you've got the investment, you know it's going to work for you. Not a guarantee, but it's tried and tested. It's greater project success because it's based on 6 parameters: cost, benefits, etc., and scope. And it improves trust within the teams, and it makes the business work across the business, cross business, reduces silos, and in essence, it makes your organization more effective. So that's why you use the method in this new world.
Thank you.
I actually, yeah, I really like this question. I thought it was really, really interesting. And the reason for that is that I'd say that it's kind of during emergent events such as this, which is when is really given the kind of opportunity to shine. And that's because, you know, emergent events tend to create uncertainty. As you know, business doesn't like uncertainty. You look at the sort of value of the stock markets globally at the moment, you know, they just don't like uncertainty. But, you know, continuing to follow the Prince2 principles, themes, processes, you know, obviously with the level of tailoring as necessary, can really help to kind of present the work as very much kind of business as usual, you know, BAU, rather than having to think, oh gosh, you know, we need to reinvent the wheel, we need to try something completely untested, etc. No, you know, you don't need to. I think also just a quick word on complex projects, which sort of, I guess, from my perspective in terms of the sort of work I do with institutions. And really what I'd say is that in terms of the project management landscape, as the projects become increasingly international, you know, under the kind of banner of complex, you know, they're becoming increasingly international. You know, you're looking at large project teams based overseas, based in different countries, different time zones. I think what I'd say from discussions with institutions is very much the fact that the common language of Prince2 is becoming even more relevant, you know, in this day and age, to sort of really help those, you know, different project teams, different time zones, different cultures, etc., be successful.
So in this case, would you agree, would you say that under uncertainty, maybe we should follow the essence of a best practice, which is good communication, common language, instead of following the descriptive steps that we have to go through? Would you agree with this? It's just the essence of the methodology or the essence of best practice that needs to be followed under uncertainty, because otherwise everything is messy, people are self-organizing around a new situation, a new normal. Do you agree with this, Allan?
I would say that from the considerable experience I've got using Prince2 before I joined AXELOS, the thing that I liked about it was it basically was a sequential process from start of the project to project closure. And what that did for me as a project manager, it allowed me to basically show the team how we were going to manage the project, which basically gave us visibility. And it showed you activities and steps. It was prescriptive to a certain extent. That depends on what level you go to. But projects are can be complex. So you need to have that visibility of what you're doing at startup, what you're doing at initiation and close down. So it's important it's done right, the activities. The key part that the Prince 2 method brings is the tailoring. And that's where people can get overloaded with documentation, detail, etc. Whereby if people take the whole book to a project, then it becomes mechanistic tailoring, which is you just basically drown under the documentation. On the other spectrum, where there's no method followed, you have heroic project management, which is doomed to failure, if not the first time, but definitely the second. So it depends on the tailoring, but the method is based on the project lifecycle, and that's what gives it its strength.
Thank you. Thank you for explaining this in a very good way. Thank you, Allan. Mark, let me ask you the question from a slightly different angle. Now, we are still talking about complex projects. We are still talking about complexity. And research suggests or says that the best way to deal with complexity is innovation and creativity. So do you think the best practice mindset, is it with innovation, or is it more towards consistency and repetition? What do you think, Mark?
So my thoughts on this are really that kind of, whilst best practice provides the method to, say in the case of Prince 2, implement and execute a project successfully, I'd say that it's not looking to provide a kind of straitjacket approach, so, and it's not a sort of how-to guide, it's not a sort of follow step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so really I'd say that whilst the method is actually provided by the 7 principles, themes and processes, the project manager is left with and provided with huge amounts of scope to obviously tailor. And I think that within tailoring, and really should include innovation, if appropriate. And obviously kind of, when the project management team come to reviewing the project, they'll obviously kind of figure out whether actually in that particular instance there was maybe too much or too little innovation. But again, they can document that, they can learn, and they can take the learnings on to the next project. So I wouldn't say it's either or, like I said, I think that the method provides the 7 principles, themes and processes, but within that there's ample scope to innovate.
Thank you, Mark. Allan, do you agree there is a room for innovation in a methodology like Prince 2, for example?
Absolutely, and there needs to be, because the project can basically change as things change, markets change, people change in the project itself. And also, if one of the key aspects of Prince 2 is risk management, and basically it's how the project manager engages with the team and the business in risk mitigation. And that can involve a certain amount of innovation to mitigate risks if they occur. So that's where innovation in a traditional project management method comes in. If this happens, this is what we're going to do to mitigate it. So you're always innovating and having time in the what if scenario. And we have a Prince 2 Agile product, which is Prince 2 tailored in a Agile context. And one of the key Prince 2 Agile behaviors is exploration, which we expect the teams to be doing. And these teams would be doing like experiments, spikes, etc., to resolve potential issues or looking at how to mitigate risks. And that's all still within the context of a Prince 2 product, project delivery. So innovation, in my view, is part and parcel of it. It's got to be.
It's got to be. Thank you. Thank you very much, Allan, and thank you, Mark. I think I'll start taking some questions. We've got a few questions from the audience. Some of them actually in the same topic of innovation. Let me start with a question from Nick on leadership. We haven't touched on leadership. The argument is that best practice fits a transactional leader mindset, not the transformational leader profile needed for more complex projects. Do you agree with this, Mark? Do you agree transactional leadership is is more suited to best practice. Transformational leadership, where the leader needs to change their leadership style and they need to change the way they are managing and leading the team, is not something that best practice can accommodate. But in the same time, is the type of leadership that is needed for complex projects. Would you like to comment on this, Mark?
Yeah, sure. I think, Nick, that's a great question. Thank you. I suppose I'd kind of refer almost to the answers that we just gave around innovation, which is the fact that by having a method in place, I think that therefore that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't innovate and you can't think in a transformative way, But I think to be able to have the kind of space to be able to do that, you need to have a certain foundation in place, And then once you've got that sort of foundation in place, right, then you can really kind of take it to where you need to take it suitably for your business, So, yeah, I think that would be the way I'd sort of view it. I don't think it needs to be either or, I think kind of depending on your industry, depending on your sort of position within the business, depending on the sort of the type of company you work for and its kind of appetite for risk, etc. All of these kind of things will combine to really determine the sort of level of the level and type of approach that you might want to take. But I think that regardless, a method such as Prince2 sort of provides the sort of bedrock, I suppose, to be able to go forward and do that.
Mm.
Mm-hmm. Allan?
I would say that leadership is hugely important to managing successful projects, very much so. But in itself, it is a complete book on itself. It's so important to get that, and it's always constantly evolving. And this is where you've got the Prince2 method. And the Prince2 method itself doesn't basically specify a type of leadership that you to use in a project, because it can't, because there's so many different forms. Everyone is slightly different. But this is where I went back to about how you augment the best practice guides. And this is one area that we're going to be looking at more so in the future. And this is where we're going to be doing it via exploring white papers and subsequent support publications, because leadership is very important. But just to support what Mark said, as you move into program management, which is the next step up within the organization itself, there's great focus in our managing successful programs where leadership is specified, what it needs to do, etc., and very important. But I can actually say that within Prince2, it acknowledges leadership's important, but it can't include it because it would be another book to actually build in. But it's something that we need to get more and more prevalence about, more blogs, more white paper, more information, because organizations, they need people who know the method and are confident in using the method, but they need the right sort of skill sets. And we're talking here about interpersonal skills and not soft skills, because these are like business essential skills, so that people can actually take the project management team with them and make the project successful.
Thank you very much, Allan. Mark, yeah, please. How would you describe that? Let me ask you first. How would you describe a leader using Prince2 methodology, for example? How do you think this person should be behaving and leading his project or her project?
Well, I think it depends kind of obviously at what level they sit in the organisation. But I think first and foremost, it's someone who gives the project management team the space to be successful. It's someone who trusts his or her team, who respects what it is that they're trying to achieve, and is available to respond quite quickly to requests, either individually or via the board, So ultimately, I think it's like any leader in any situation. It's someone who is there to support the team when they need that support, but also gives them the kind of the confidence and the freedom and flexibility to really essentially get on and do their job. Danya, do you mind if I just mention something just to finish off that last?
Sure, yeah.
About soft skills. Just I think it's something that will be useful for the listeners just to go and have a Google at some point and find out. I'm just going to look at my notes here, but there's a report that was produced by the City of London Corporation, and it's called Transferable Skills in the Workplace. So you can literally Google City of London Corporation, transferable skills in the workplace. And it was produced in June 2019. Mm-hmm. And it was 101 UK employers who basically provided feedback around transferable skills. And some of the findings are really, really interesting. And I think one of the headlines was this: 74% of the employers prioritized transferable skills, placed transferable skills equal to or above technical skills when recruiting new employees. And the top 5 so-called sort of soft skills, transferable skills that they were referring to are, the first was kind of oral communication and presentations. Then we had collaboration and teamwork, initiative, problem solving, and organizational skills. There's far more than that I could tell you about, but I'm very conscious of time. But I think it really shows Allan and myself, the sort of emergence and importance of these so-called soft skills that perhaps only even I think a decade or so ago were generally prioritized kind of below your sort of technical skills. Yeah, and again, I think in the context of answering your question, around leadership, it kind of again sort of shows that someone, who has all those is someone who can really kind of lead a team to be successful.
Yeah, and that also links into team managing the project management team, and that, that's highly important. And my experience of leading projects, I've always been very conscious that basically the we as a team. Some project managers I've found in the past who have been leading teams, when they're making discussions, and I will report it to senior management. I will do this. And I always found that a bit uncomfortable, and that's how you switch your team off. You got a project manager, as Mark said, you're there to actually deliver the objectives for the organization. That's your job to do. As long as the team's clear on that, that's fine. But the team, you've got to allow that team get rid of the blockers to make sure they're effective and make sure they're working well together. Collaboration, honesty, communication is absolutely key. Transparency, because organizations still get it wrong. That's why projects fail.
Yeah.
There's no I in team, Allan. Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I have a very good question from Nadia. She's asking, is Prince2 agile? How can Prince2 coexist with agile methods? This should be interesting because AXELOS Best Practice is both about agile and Prince2 as well. So you delivered both.
Do you want me to take that, Mark?
Yeah, that's a great question, Allan. Go for it.
What actually happened in the 2009 version of update for Prince2, that was the 5th edition. What we did was we made actually all the 6 parameters of project parameters of all the same status: cost, benefits, risk, scope, quality, and
time.
Correct. Thank you. So those 6 parameters, we gave them equal weighting, whereas before they weren't in the 2004 version. So as a result of that, we were able to include tolerances in the 2009 edition. As a result of that, because of the tolerances and the equal weighting between the 6 aspects of project management, it became agile enabled, and that was built into it. But in 2015, we had lots and lots of Prince2 practitioners from the community experiencing agile for the first time, and the best way to describe it, we lots of emails like, what's the ceremony, what's a retrospective, what's a information radiator, and we accumulated all the feedback and basically felt there was a need for Prince2 agile to be generated based on community feedback. And we could only do it because Prince2 was agile enabled in 2009. And that's the only reason we could do it in 2015. With the update to Prince2 in 2017 to the 6th edition, we've actually included more agile by recognizing agile environments, even in the Prince 2 manual as it currently stands.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Mark, would you like to add to this, to the coexisting between Prince 2 and Agile? Any comments?
I don't think I could add anything more.
Oh, go on.
Just
go
provide
on.
it frankly. No, that was
okay. Let me ask you this question. Let's say, I think Allan just proposed or assumed, suggested maybe in a year or two, you might need to go through another round of updating methodologies like Prince 2. Personally, I know it's about collaboration and feedback from industry, academia, etc. But personally, what would you change after this situation with COVID? In Prince 2 in specific, Mark, what would you change?
What would I change? Wow. To be honest, I think that I've always thought that the kind of key strength of these methods such as Prince 2 is the fact that you kind of don't need to be reaching out for change so often. You know, it's something which is, I think one of, you know, hopefully this has come out in this discussion. I think just kind of one of the key benefits of it is this sort of this sense that it's a trusted method that you can take and you can use in, you know, in pretty much any environment. And, you know, if you need to operate in a more agile environment, then you know what, there's also Prince 2 Agile as well, which is fantastic. And so I think the short answer is that a little bit, you know, something like COVID-19, I think I was saying earlier, kind of almost provides an opportunity for a method like Prince 2 to really shine, and I've explained why that was. So would I be looking to make any kind of immediate changes? No. Would I be looking to our community to provide, you know, potentially new feedback based on, you know, what they've experienced throughout this, and may possibly allow that information to feed into future iterations of the product? Most definitely, yeah.
Thank you. Allan, how would you modify it? Let's maybe change is a strong word. How would you modify Prince 2 if you are going to modify it? If you think it doesn't need to be modified after COVID-19 in a year or two, it's fine. Well, any comments on this?
Well, I'm not going to use the language modify. I'm going to use the language enhance.
Okay, good.
And because I was heavily involved in the update in 2017, one area that we could basically get more information in, but Prince 2 is it's a large book, don't get me wrong, but it's a comprehensive project management method. So because of the size and scale of it, if something goes in, something's got to come out. And at this moment in time, everything's required. But because of what COVID's done with the rapidly changing ecosystems that organizations face themselves, in the book, we've got chapter 21, it's called, where we show how Prince 2 can be used to be integrated and embedded into your organization. What we also wanted to include there was examples of good and bad tailoring, where this is a bad example and this is a good example. So it gives organizations a starting place. Because of the pagination restrictions, then we have to do this as a white paper, but we've got one of the authors from Prince 2 to write a white paper so that organizations it gives them somewhere to go where they're tailoring the method correctly. And that's one area. And I think personally, the only area that we need to enhance what we've currently got.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Well, actually, thank you very much. We are actually approaching the end of the broadcast. I'll give you the chance to say a few words, few comments at the end. Mark?
Yeah, thanks everyone. It's been a pleasure to share some thoughts with you, and thank you for those really interesting, insightful questions. Just kind of to say, I suppose, in my conversations with, you know, the global stakeholders, particularly academic stakeholders, I suppose I'm constantly impressed upon how well known Prince 2 is in many different territories globally. And so really, I suppose I'd encourage you guys to sort of really take advantage of that global awareness, you know. And just last but not least, my email is mark.hudson@axelos.com if you want to get in touch.
Thank you. Thank you. Allan?
I would like to thank everyone for joining us today, and it's been a really, really informative session, and we've had some excellent questions, and thank you for that as well. And if you've got any further questions, please don't hesitate to contact me. Use my email address. It's Allan, 2 L's, at .Thompson, no P in Thompson, at AXELOS.com.
Thank you.
Because,
I made that mistake with the P.
Yeah,
I actually made that one.
I think it goes to a finance director somewhere. But no, it's been excellent. And, you know, these occasions are great for us to talk about the products that we really believe in.
Absolutely.
It's a great opportunity. So thank you for that as well.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Much appreciated.
Yeah. Absolutely, it's a pleasure. And I'd like also just to know that in the MSc Project Management, the University of Westminster Business School, we offer Prince to students to take as part of the course, actually, and it's actually very popular. But very much a very big and sincere thank you to both of you, Allan and Mark. It's been a pleasure and a very informative session. Thank you to our listeners as well, and thank you to the audience who participated in the questions and in the comments. From us at PM Radio Westminster, best regards and goodbye.